Hi, Melanie Muenchinger here, illustrator for Gina K Designs. Another fabulous frame project for you today. I'm going very clean and simple with the frame and just making this nice masculine beach card. I have a congrats on it because I'm sending it to my dad and stepmom for keeping my boys this last week. They live in San Diego, and so I thought this would just be a really nice card to send to them to say, yeah, you did it and we appreciate you. Also, I used my A Year of Borders stamp set with it. This has 6 different borders in it that match 9 of my other sets from Gina K Designs. So you have these beautiful butterflies that match a beautiful life, flowers that match a buds and vases. This matches Gifts from the Sea, all these beautiful seashells. The leaves for A Year of Leaves. This poinsettia border actually matches the A Year of Flowers, festive frame, and my holiday basket. And finally, this bold, it kind of looks like an etching of some flowers. This matches my wildflower set and my Wild at Heart frame. So this is a really great year-round set. That's why it's called Year of Borders, and it looks terrific stamped on the frame. So let's get started. In addition to the fabulous frame set and the A Year of Borders set, you will need a large block for the frame, a long block for the border. I'll go ahead and pop that on right now. And this has been hand trimmed. I got this set before we were trimming the rubber. So if you've gotten it more recently or you're going to get it, it's going to have a nice laser cut edge around the edge. So they're very easy to line up even though it's rubber. Also going to be needing some cardstock. So I'm going to be using the Gina K Pure Luxury Powder Blue, the Kraft, and then just a scrap of white. Going to be using the Versamark for stamping onto that card base, and the dark chocolate Gina K ink. Have just a few Spectrum Noir markers that I'm using to accent those little shells. I've got the CR1, the IG2, and the BG4, which is what I'm going to be using on that Kraft cardstock border. I'm just trying to keep it very tone-on-tone today for a more subtle look. I have some scissors for cutting out the shells, some foam for popping up the image, and then I'm also going to be using some little brads, and I like this little 1/16 hole punch, but you could also pierce it. Alright, so let's go ahead and begin. Go ahead, and I have my scored 4 1/4 by 11-inch base, scored at 5 1/2. Okay, and then I'm just going to ink this up with the Versamark. If you don't have Versamark, you could use a light blue or the coordinating powder blue ink to get a similar look. Okay, so we're just going to lay that right over the base. Pardon my head if you see it. Press all over and pull it away. And I just love that look. It looks like you have an embossing folder. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to stamp this onto the Kraft, and I just wanted it to be a little darker, so that's why I decided to use the chocolate ink instead of the Versamark. I want it to pop just a tiny bit more. Okay. And I'm going to be trimming this out, but you'll need a scrap that's at least big enough to stamp the frame onto. So 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 will give you a little bit of space. Pull it away. Perfect. You're also going to be making some masks. These are ones that I showed you before in one of my videos. So just one to cover up the outer frame and then one to cover up the oval. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the border. I'm going to stamp this in the brown. So cover that up. And I want the border to stand out, but you could also stamp this repeatedly to make a pattern on both of these areas if you want. Okay, pull it away. Then going to add it to the top and the bottom of this oval. I wanted to show you this as a way when you have a small word that you want to put in that large oval. It might seem like it needs something a little more extra in there in the space, since the words are a little bit on the small side. So Just put it on the top and the bottom. And then I'm going to stamp that congrats in the middle. Okay. Now let's go ahead and fill in that border real quick. And you could do different ones if you want for the different layers, but I'm going to keep them all this same color. And you might want to test your marker before you start, because it really soaks into the craft. Again, it doesn't bleed through to the other side, but the color is going to be a little different than what it would look like on your white cardstock. So just always check it ahead of time so that you're not surprised. Now, if you're using Copics, one of the warm grays would work nicely, maybe the W3. And this is a color that you can also do to make a drop shadow on that border. And it just adds a little bit of interest and it makes them look three-dimensional. So we'll do that next as soon as I'm done coloring in this oval. Okay, so all I'm going to do is I am just going to trace along the underside of that border, and see how that's popping now? I just really like that look. It's such an easy way to add some interest to this card without having to color in all those different shells. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and use my scissors to just make one little mark on either side of that oval so that they'll be even when I punch my holes. For my brads, let's go ahead and cut this out. And I just like using some different colored cardstocks. I know that you probably have a lot in your collection. So I really wanted to show you layering this frame up. And again, by cutting off the sections like I did on the square card. So this time we're leaving the long side to use it on the rectangle. And again, you can turn this any direction on that card. Okay, now let's go ahead and I'm going to put my brads in quickly, and then we'll add just a little bit of color to those images. So just really quick, you won't believe. But that's the other thing that I really like about these different borders, that you have so many different little images in there that you can stamp again and then color and cut out for little embellishments. And that's all this card really needed. So I'm going to go ahead and put on just a little bit of foam on the back. And I'm just pulling out pieces of this scrap. Okay. Tear off the paper. And we're going to center it right over the stamped frame on the card, just like we're paper piecing. Okay, just clean and simple. All right, now here is part of the border that I stamped in that dark chocolate earlier. And I'm going to go ahead and just add a little bit of this BG4 to this shell, and then a little bit inside that conch shell, and then just a tiny bit on that white coral. Then I'm going to take some of this peachy color and just add that in there. Oops. And then just a little bit of this IG2, the softer blue. Okay, so then you would just cut this out, and doing this very quickly. So I just chose a portion of the border that I liked, that I wanted to emphasize, but also something that would be easy to cut out. Cutting out the whole border would be time consuming, but usually I just use a couple little pieces. There's my kitty. I apologize, I didn't put her in the back room, so she's curious about why she can't come in. And then I'll just trim that last little bit right there. Okay, then I'll pop that up with a little bit more of the foam. And I just centered it right over the border, but it doesn't have to be that exact same part. Okay, so just right here. Okay. And then you could go ahead if you wanted, just stamp the border inside, just to add some interest, and tie that in to the front of your card. Fold it, card complete. So with this one set, you could just make all sorts of cards for all sorts of occasions all year long. I hope you enjoy this clean and simple project. Please visit my blog, Hands, Head, and Heart, for more inspiration. Thank you for watching.